Hi boys and girls, today you're going to be creating mini mugs, and I've made little templates that you can cut out and use to make sure that you get the right size clay. I have already taken the liberty of doing that so that you don't have to sit here and watch me. So the first piece we're going to want to focus on is this one, which is going to be the part that goes around. This is the sides of our mug, okay? So you'll get to decide on your mug whether you want to put a texture in it or not. But when you do get your handle on, do not pick it up by the handle because this is not strong enough to support it when it's damp like this. I have to wait till it's cooked, okay? All right, so you're going to get some clay. There will be these little boards. They are for making sure, you're going to put them on either side of your clay. That's to make sure that you don't get your clay too thin so that the walls of your mug are not strong, okay? Once you have the clay in the middle, and I'm going to actually stand up for this because I want to get some good pressure on here, you want to roll it out, and you should have your rolling pin should be rolling along the wood. Then you know that your clay is the right thickness. So I'm pressing down. I'm not quite there. This is way too long. I don't really need that. I'm going to just set that aside for now. I might need that for the handle, but for the walls, I don't need it for the actual form of my mug. Okay, I can feel as I'm right about here that, you see how I'm getting a dent there? That means I didn't have it all the way down on the board. It was kind of floating along the top of the clay. So keep pressing with all of your might until you know you have it nice and even. Okay. And then when you have a big enough slab, this is a slab, we call it the slab, that is the thickness of these little boards, you're going to lay your template on top of it and then use whatever tools, depending on where we're at. It might be a wooden tool, it might be a wire tool, just use whichever tool you have and cut out the size of that little template that you had on your paper. Okay, so I've cut mine about that size. Okay, all right, now I know that the sides of my mug are ready to go. There's one decision I have to make, and I'm going to set these aside because they'll be in the way if I try to do it with the texture. All right. Also, while you're working, if you put this extra clay underneath a damp paper towel, that's a paper towel that has been wet and then squeezed out really good. Just put it over it like a little tent to keep the moisture in while you're not working on it, okay? Okay, so let's say I've decided, you know what, I want mine to have a texture. Mrs. Walker has some lace that you can use to just place on there. And what you'll do is you'll just take the rolling pin and roll it, not so hard that you flatten out your clay very much, but just enough so that it presses that texture into your clay. And you can kind of peek at it to see if you're getting it. Yeah, I got it. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that right up. There, I've got a texture. I kind of like that. Now, in the directions here, you can see it says bevel edge, bevel edge. You're going to bevel the two edges, and bevel just means you're going to cut this so that it's at a diagonal. So I'm going to take off the corner because I know I'm going to lay this over top of this to connect them, and I don't want to have a big bump there where the two layers are too thick. Oh, okay, bevel it on one side, then pick it up, flip it over, and bevel it on the opposite side. Okay, because then they'll fit together better if you do that. All right, so you should have this nice kind of almost like a little slide, if you're going to slide down it, edge. Okay, and now this is where we want to attach the two. We want to attach this flat edge to this flat beveled edge, but we don't want them to be flat. We want to actually put some texture in there. So we want to take our toothbrush and we want to rough that up a little bit. This is called scoring the clay. It's where you make it kind of rough and bumpy, and then you take the two rough and bumpy sides, and you're going to attach them together. I'm going to set it up so you can see what I'm doing. You want to overlap just a little bit. Do you see how I'm overlapping the two beveled edges? And reach your hand down in here and you want to smooth those together. Sometimes I even take it and kind of jiggle it back and forth because you want to feel those hooked together. You want to feel them kind of attached to each other, almost like Velcro. Okay, this feels like it's pretty good. Now, I'm ready for my base. So I've got that part together, and actually, oh, you want to smooth this so that so they look like they're one piece. So if you flip it over and you can see where that crack is, then you need to smooth it more. You shouldn't be able to tell where you connected it if you did it right, okay? All right, now I'm ready to roll out some more because I need to cut this piece, okay? So I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm going to get my two boards on either side so that I can make sure, bumping that a little bit, so I can make sure I don't get it too thick, okay? You could even make it a little bit into a pancake first if you want to. If it's easier for you to like press it with your hand first and then use the rolling pin, you can do that. Just don't make it too thin of a pancake. Okay, I got to stand up again because I'm not getting the kind of pressure that I need here. All right. All right, that feels pretty good. I feel that I'm rolling along the board, so I know I've got it the right thickness. I'm going to lay this on here. And I'm just going to cut right around it. Let's see. Go right there. Just follow the circle. It doesn't have to be perfect. You'll be smoothing those edges in when you connect it to the other one. So just want to get kind of a circular shape, kind of like you're making a cookie, right? All right, I've got my cookie base, if you will. Now I'm going to score. If you look back at this, the little key says anywhere you see these little texture lines, you're supposed to score that area with a toothbrush. So I need to score all the way around the base. I'm going to go ahead and do that with my toothbrush. Take it and just try to scratch it a little bit, different directions, and then take your mug, flip it over, and don't get it too wet, but you want to actually rough up that bottom edge that's going to attach to the base, okay? And then you're going to stick it right on there. Okay. Wow, mine actually fit down inside. I was thinking it was going to set on top. It fit down inside. Cool. Okay, so there we go. Then if you can reach it with your finger, go ahead and smooth that corner. You want to make sure that's sealed. If you don't get a good seal on this, when you go to put liquid in your cup, guess what will happen? Yep, I hope you said it's going to leak, because it will. So this is tricky. You need to make sure this is completely sealed before you turn it into me. So I would just definitely pull a little bit of that clay over the edge there. I actually was hoping mine was going to be sitting on the base, but it's not. So either way is okay. I have to make sure I make that seal. Okay, once you have it sealed, you're going to set it aside and we're going to make your handle. And another thing with the top here, I'm going to moisten my fingers on this sponge. You want the top to be a little bit smoother than everything else, because this is the part where your mouth would go when you're going to drink out of it. You don't want any bumps or scratchy things along here. And so I'm even taking like a little bit of the corner off. You see how it's not flat anymore? I'm taking a little bit of those corners off, because if you go to try and drink out of this, you want it to come up, not to a sharp point, but you want it to kind of be rounded a little bit at the top, okay? Like a mug would be, or a cup, any kind of glass or cup. It gets thinner right up here at the edge. Okay, now I'm ready for my handle. So the handle, you're just going to roll a coil and then flatten it out like this. So you don't want to cut it out necessarily, because we don't want any sharp edges. So I'm just going to take a ball of clay, squeeze it down, and then, let me move these out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to roll it. And a coil is what you would probably call a snake, right? When we were doing Play-Doh, we would make little snakes like this. Just take the flat part of your hand and just kind of roll it all the way up and all the way down and put some pressure on it and get it thinner and thinner And what you want it to be is thinner than this, because we're going to flatten it down a little bit. So this is definitely too thick. I actually have way too much. I'm going to keep going. I want to be able to flatten it slightly and it be that thick. Okay, so I know I don't want it to be that thick to start with, otherwise I'll have a really wide handle. But I don't want it too much thinner than that either, because then I'll have too thin of a handle. So this is kind of a picky piece. So I'm going to pinch that off, I'm going to pinch that off. Okay, that's pretty close to the length I want. This doesn't have to be exact. This is just kind of a guesstimated size, okay? All right, so you can see this is a little bit thinner than this. I'm going to slightly smash it, not a lot. I'm just going to flatten it just a little with the palm of my hand. I don't want it to get any thinner than this. So if you push it down, maybe I should have put this on either side. Just make sure I don't, actually I don't want it to end up being square either, though I want it to stay kind of rounded. So I'm just going to use this to make sure that I don't push it down too flat, okay? All right, once you have it, now if I turn it to the side, do you see how it's thinner on this way than it is this way? That's what we want. We want it to be like a handle. And then you're going to decide, do I want a decorative handle? If you want a decorative handle, like mine was, where it's kind of curled around here, you're going to want to make this a little bit thinner, okay? And I'm going to moisten my fingers here a little bit because I want it to stick to itself. Okay. And then I'm going to bend this. I'm going to start bending it and curling it around like so. Maybe to about there. Now mine's starting to crack. That's okay if it starts to crack. Just wet your finger and kind of smooth it out a little bit. Smooth out the cracks before you stick it on, because they're a lot easier to smooth out right now than they are once you get them on there. However, you can smooth them out once you get them on there. It's just a little bit more work. So see how I've got some cracks there? If you wet it and just run your finger over it, it's not going to smooth it. You actually have to kind of drag your finger over it to smooth it out. Okay? All right, I've got what I want. I think I want this to be here. And then I'm going to put this one, I'm going to turn this sideways. You want to have this far enough down so it supports it. So I'm going to flatten this out just a little bit more. I want it wider to really hold on. And then I'm going to toothbrush this and the place where I'm attaching it. And I think I'm going to attach it, let's see, where's my least attractive area? Maybe where I connected the two. Actually, you can't even tell. I think it might be here. So I'm going to go ahead and put it right there and right down here. Some people wrap this over the top. If that makes you feel more secure to put it over the top, you can. Or you can attach it here. But if you attach it here, you need to wiggle it back and forth until you really feel it attaching, okay? It has to be stuck on there really good, okay? And then the same thing goes with the bottom piece here. You're going to use your toothbrush and brush that, brush the place where you're attaching it, and then you're going to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. I usually wiggle it back and forth until I can just feel it adhere. And then this, I'm going to turn it sideways so you can see. You don't want the you don't want the handle sticking up above the top of your mug, so you need to bend this down. If it's too wide, if you're like looking at that and going, I think that's too much handle, because remember I gave you plenty. I feel like mine's a little bit too much. I'm going to pinch a little bit off, and I'm going to go at this again with my toothbrush. Okay, because I want to have, and everybody's hand is different. So, I mean, you're making it to fit your hand. So, do what you think feels good in your hand. Like, I think that might be just about right for me. Okay, and whatever shape you think looks best. But you don't want it up above the edge, because then when you go to take a drink out of this, this kind of bumps you in the face. Okay, so so you don't want to attach it too high. Okay, so there I have my handle. Okay. And I do not want to pick it up by this handle, though. This is not going to hold it right now. It has to have some time to dry and then cook before it will be strong enough. Now, probably look around and see, make sure you don't have any cracks or anywhere that needs, anything that needs touched up, and then go ahead and set this on a piece of paper that has your name on it. And when it's a little bit drier, Mrs. Walker will write your name on the bottom, okay? Check for scrapes and scratches and, you know, things that need to be touched up. Okay, then as far as cleanup goes, any extra bits of clay go back in the clay bag. Okay, there should be a damp cloth in there to keep it moist. all of these go back where you got them. There should be a box for these. There should be a box for the tools that you used. There should also be a box for the rolling pins. These stay together, so you should have some toothbrushes, and these little wooden tools are good if you're putting a design on it. If you're wanting to put a design, you could do that with those. Okay? All right. Have fun.